Welcome to Loose Lips, all the things you wanted to say but didn't know how to say it. Today's topic is why Ukraine's win or lose in the war affects us all. Now, it is inevitable and common sense that everyone wants the Ukraine-Russian war to end. The outcome of the war in Ukraine may have different impacts on us depending on our location, interest, and values. Now, here are some of the possible effects. If Russia wins, it may embolden Putin to expand his influence and control over other former Soviet republics, creating a new anti-Western power bloc with a conservative ideology. Now, this could pose a threat to the security and stability of Europe and the US, as well as the values of democracy and human rights that we cherish. Russia may also use its energy resources as a weapon to pressure and coerce its neighbors and customers. I am seriously hoping for another mild winter to further alienate Russia, but more than ever, we also need to get away from gas and oil when it comes to energy. Now, if Ukraine wins, it may inspire other countries that face Russia aggression or interference to resist and defend their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Ukraine may also become a model of democratic transition and reform for the region, strengthening its ties with the EU and NATO. This could enhance the cooperation and partnership between the West and Ukraine, as well as other countries that share similar aspirations. Now, it is well noted that the Ukrainian people are badasses. They are fighting like tigers and are not giving up, despite being the underdog in this fight. They are resourceful and have not backed down from Russia's devastation, and it is obvious that Ukraine will be a model for many countries to look into, not only when this is over, but even now ongoing, because countries are taking stock of what is working and what isn't working on the battlefield. Bullies should never win. Now, if the war ends in a stalemate or a frozen conflict, it may even prolong the suffering and displacement of millions of people in Ukraine, especially in the occupied territories. It may also create a permanent source of tension and instability in Europe, undermining the trust and dialogue between Russia and the West. It may also even prevent Ukraine from achieving its full potential as a prosperous and democratic nation. Now, this is actually to me the worst case scenario, as this means that there will be no end in sight. Make no mistake, if there is a stalemate, it only gives Putin a chance to redirect and rebuild his army, as well as stockpile of weapons. Imagine being put out of your home for a year or 2 years and in limbo. Eventually, you're going to want to go back to your own place, be that as may. Everyone needs some place to call home. There are millions of Ukrainians displaced at the moment. Not only does this place burdens on other countries and utilizes resources that countries did not expect to use, there will also be permanent tension in Europe because the conflict has not ended. It's like when you're in a boxing match, when you sit off to the side and wait for the next round. This is what a stalemate will produce. You're just waiting and waiting and waiting for the next round, for the next round, for the next round. If Ukraine actually wins the war against Russia, it may actually have some positive effects on the US, such as strengthening the US strategic ally and partner in Europe, as Ukraine is a key country for the security and stability of the region. The US may also benefit from increased cooperation and trade with Ukraine, as well as access to its natural resources and markets. Now, one thing this war has taught many people is the resources that Ukraine is actually sitting on. I mean, think about it. Putin didn't invade to get rid of Nazis or whatever he claims, because there are Nazis in Russia itself. Putin invaded because the land that Ukraine is on is valuable and has resources that Putin wants: metals, ores, rich earth for farming, etc. Also, the location of Ukraine opens up to Europe in a wider bloc, which Putin hates, but Europe would welcome Ukraine after this. It should also be noted that Ukraine will definitely be a place to visit, as the rebuild of the country is being talked about among nations and top companies. Now, enhancing the US's credibility and leadership in the world could also happen if Ukraine wins, as it has supported Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity since the start of the conflict. The US may also gain more respect and trust from other allies and partners who may see the US as a reliable defender of democracy and human rights. Now, let's face it, everyone has their boundaries, and in this day and age, who would have thought that two nations would be fighting over land? And this is important for Ukraine to defend their land, their sovereign rights. Everyone is watching because if they lose, it spells out conflicts to other nations. I mean, what is to stop Russia from attacking from Alaska next? Think about it. Now, another way that Ukraine's win can benefit the US is deterring further Russian aggression or expansion, as it would show that Russia cannot achieve its goals by force or intimidation. The US may also be able to reduce its military presence and spending in Europe, as the threat from Russia would be diminished. If Russia loses, it would be stripped of its superpower status. Everyone is already looking at Russia's army as weak, and now everyone knows that numbers of forces doesn't mean you will overpower another nation. This war has also brought about the corruption that is rampant in Russia, so much so that they do not have the best and overpowering weapons they and everyone else thought they had. Their weapons are no match for what Ukraine has been given. It just goes to show when you line your pockets, you may reap the rewards, but you lose out on the gains. Now, if Ukraine loses the war against Russia, it may have some negative effects on the US, such as weakening the US strategic ally and partner in Europe, as Ukraine is a key country for the security and stability of the region. The US may also lose influence and leverage in the region, as well as face increased challenges and threats from Russia. The United States has been in the forefront, providing Ukraine with weapons, keeping up with sanctions, and even getting the European bloc to follow suit. Even though we are across the pond, we still need to be mindful of what is going on in Ukraine. Ukraine's sovereignty affects everyone. Now, if they lose, it can also damage the US credibility and leadership in the world, as it has failed to protect Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity despite its promises and commitments. The US may also face more criticism and distrust from other allies and partners who may question the US's willingness and ability to defend them. Now, the US has currently stated that we will always support Ukraine despite what is going on, and it is the right thing to do. It would be catastrophic to stop sending aid, weapons, and guarantees to Ukraine. Not only could this affect and turn the tide of the war, but it would also serve the purpose to other nations that we switch were unreliable. Think about it. If Trump were president, he would not have sent or managed anything that is going on right now, he probably would have handed Ukraine to Putin, and there would be disarray within the globe at the moment. Many nations would be fighting, boundaries would be lost, there would be chaos. This is why it is so important to keep providing the weapons and aids that Ukraine needs. Without boundaries that were settled long ago, we only end up going backwards where conflicts and chaos rules. It is important that even with the next election and whoever the next president is, continues to feed the needs of Ukraine for as long as it takes. If not, we are encouraging further Russian aggression or expansionism, as it would show that Russia can achieve its goals by force or intimidation. The US may even have to increase its military presence and spending in Europe, as well as confront Russia in other areas of conflict or competition. Is this what we truly want? Do we want to go back to a wartime economy? Look, I know there are those that have strong views and beliefs on this war in Ukraine, how we are spending money over there that could be used more effectively over here. That may be so, but one hand supports the other. When you think about it, it is all connected and related. Yes, there are issues in the United States, infrastructure, unemployment, inflation, debt ceiling, whatever. But think about what we are complaining about. We are complaining about something that we either have too little or not enough of. Well, guess what? Ukraine has nothing at the moment. We complain about rising food prices. Ukraine has no food. Their fields are mined. We complain about inflation and the high cost of goods. Well, guess what? Ukraine has no goods. We complain about making our rent, our mortgage payment. Well, guess what? Ukraine's houses are getting burnt and bombed. This war, which many thought would be over and done with within days, has gone on for almost 2 years now. Not only do people not even want to talk of the horrible things that are going on over there anymore, we are not living what they are going through. We can't always have the attitude that it's not in my backyard, so it doesn't concern me, it doesn't affect me, because it does, and it will. If Ukraine's farmland has the majority share of wheat and they can't produce the wheat, what happens? Shortage happens, prices rise. We may complain about high food prices, but guess what? Not everything is grown here. We may complain about, things that are going on, but we import as well. And those high prices are due to what? The war in Ukraine, either by goods, or ship blockades, or unavailability. So you see, one hand washes the other. Regardless, everyone wants it to end, but it won't end because Putin at this point needs to try to save face. Even if his country goes into decline, which it already is now, even if his country loses all eligible men of fighting age, even if he starts putting women in the army and he loses them, he will not stop. Why? Because it doesn't concern him. As a mob mentality and oligarch society, it is of only concern what you can get and what you can steal. And as long as there are resources available, it will continue to go on. The only way I see this ending is for Ukraine to keep fighting. As tired as they may be, as hard as they may be fighting, they know they can't give up because it will be the end of them all. They will no longer have a country or even a race. Just think about that for a second and imagine you're in their shoes. Of course, you would continue to fight till the very end. So, yes, this war is important for everyone because not only will it show that you can't stronghold someone and bully them into giving up, but it also shows resilience and honor and strength. Ukraine brings a lot to the table. I only hope that if anyone ever threatened our boundaries and borders, that we would have the same strength and courage that the Ukrainians do. That's all for now. Thanks again for listening to Lose Lips, and until the next time.